Welcome to the ExecMBA podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Michael Thorne-Begland. Michael is a first-year student in our Executive MBA class of 2024, and he and I recently connected to talk more about his background, how he decided to pursue an MBA, what led him to Darden, how his first year is going as an Executive MBA student, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. So without further ado, here's my interview with Michael Thorne-Begland. Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Brett. Well, it's great to be with you.
It's great to see you here. Feels like just the other day I saw you here in Roslyn for a weekend residency. How much fun was it being with your class? I love those weekend residencies just because you get to see everybody, such great energy. We had some visitors come through, which is always fun. And we weren't able to do that for, I guess, almost a couple of years. And so it's nice to have that back in the fold too.
Yeah, no, agreed. My only concern, again, it was finance and accounting, so you definitely threw them in. But I think they definitely got a good view of what was ahead. They were great discussions. It was fun, and it's always great seeing you.
How does it feel to be in quarter 3 of the program?
Impossible. It doesn't feel possible. I mean, it is. There's this dynamic with kids where all of a sudden just you're at a different time, right? Things just change. It goes so quickly. There's this business school thing with time as well. It does not seem possible. It was like yesterday, you and I were literally having our first discussion. That was 8 months ago. So it seems impossible. It feels great. It's sort of, you keep, pinching yourself and making sure you're getting the most out of it because there's just so much to get out of it. And you realize, like, wait, if a third of this is already gone and I have 2/3 ahead of me, what do I want to adjust or change to make sure that, I'm getting the most from this?
I really appreciate that point. We get this question all the time from prospective students. What makes a successful Darden student? Those students who've really thrived in the program. And in a lot of ways, it's the people who are asking the questions that you just asked. What have I got out of the program thus far? What do I want to continue to get out of the program? How do I adjust? This sort of, this is it. This is my MBA experience, and I want to maximize it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's start kind of with the same first question we always start with these podcast conversations. Tell us more about you. Who are you, and what's your background? All right.
Well, so where to begin? Like, I'm maybe older than some of the listeners. I'm 53. So, there's plenty to talk about. I grew up as an Army brat. So when people ask where I'm from, I always struggle with that. I ended up going to high school and college here in Virginia. So I consider myself a Virginian. And, about almost 30 years ago, came down to Richmond, kind of followed my husband down here. He knew he wanted to go to law school. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I sort of tagged along with him, went to law school. I loved it. And, so came out of that, went to work at a big law firm and loved that too. And I never in a million years thought I would do law. My mom had been a secretary at Florida Legal Aid years ago when we lived there. And she just had such a great experience because she saw these lawyers and thought, man, like, what a great thing for someone to be. So we talked a lot about that at dinner table. And I think that in part was sort of what got me there. But I'm not exactly the lawyer that, we're doing the law work that I think my mom had been exposed to. But, my brother and I actually both ended up as lawyers. And so spent, maybe 6 years as a lawyer at a big firm, was having kids, and they were twins. And with twins that, like, it's going to be some work. So I knew I couldn't keep up the big firm pace that I was doing and kind of be the parent I wanted. So I actually went in-house with Altria down here, and spent a bunch of time as a lawyer. And then 5 years ago, became our first chief transformation officer and chief inclusion diversity equity officer. So kind of flipped from being this lawyer on this obscure work to kind of leading our cultural transformation and our DEI work. And that's sort of, what I do today. So again, the proud parent of now, like I mentioned kid time. Oh my gosh, they're like 18. So they are looking at school. My daughter's going to William & Mary, my alma mater, and I'm trying to get my son at UVA. So fingers crossed, we will see what happens. But yeah, my husband's now a judge here in town, and Richmond has become home. It's like impossible for us to imagine ever being anywhere else. But yeah, so that's a lot, but that's kind of a snapshot of the past 50 years.
That is a lot, and an incredible twists and turns as you go along there. Talk to us about that change you made recently at Altria, right? You were a lawyer and now you're doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work. How did you make that transition?
Yeah. I was a big loudmouth. Look, it was, or a different way to say it, it was attempted career suicide that didn't go well. It was, while I was doing the law work at the company, I picked up the side hustle. We called them employee resource groups, but, where I stood up an employee resource group, and with that sort of got a seat at the table. And one, senior executive meeting was at that table, and they asked me what I thought. And I gave them a very honest answer, which no one wanted to hear. And, it's largely, I think, like most companies, we just wanted to tout ourselves on how great we were doing and all of our successes. And I just was having none of it and was like, not a single one of these is success. We are not living up to what we've said, and this work's too important for us to pay it lip service. So again, it is as close to career suicide as you can come. And the only reason I survived it was our chief operating officer at the time was sort of one of the 20 executives that was in the room at the time that was open to what I had to say, and just asked me to help educate him. And I kind of became a mentor to him on things like DEI, on culture, on leadership. And then he became our CEO and said, "Hey, I want you to do for the company what you did for me." And he made me a chief transformation officer, whatever that means, reporting to him to lead the transformation of our company.
Wow, that's an incredible story. So one person in the room took you up on it, said, "Hey, I'd like to learn more." And next thing you know, here you are.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I always struggle because it's like, I recommend and speak to truth to power. You just, it comes at a cost, and you just have to be willing to pay the cost.
What? How did you take that leap? How did you say, "You know what? I'm going to say this. I'm just going to say this"?
Yeah, I think it was. Look, I think it was a couple of things. I grew up with a dad who, although he was military, always emphasized the need to speak truth to power. And I think part of it was because, he had been a platoon leader in Vietnam, and I think was in some ways the casualty of how poorly the armed forces had trained forces at the time that they deployed. And, and from his standpoint, it was because people hadn't spoke truth to power about what needed to be done. And so while he stayed in the military and actually spent most of his career then retooling how the military trained and deployed forces, it was all predicated on the need for there to be honest conversations around what was going well and what wasn't. So I grew up in a household where a dad that really emphasized that. The Harvard Business Review article had come out that had pointed to the fact that white men were the one employee cohort that could speak about these issues at a company and not be penalized. Any other group, women of color, anyone else that would name these issues would always pay a penalty. And so in some ways, I felt like as a white guy, I'm the one person that can do this and pay the least penalty, just based on sort of what the research had showed. And believing that this work is too important for companies to continue to underdeliver. We are at a pivotal moment, like many companies, and we talked about how our people and our culture were the key to it. And I believe that. I do believe that the only way we're going to be successful is if we actually get there. And we were just so painfully off course that it's like one of those things like, am I the only one that sees how painfully we're off course? And the answer is no, but I was the one willing to say it. And again, I think sometimes, like many of us have been in similar situations, maybe not that exact dynamic, but I just think that once you say it, it confirms what other people are thinking, and then you begin to have that conversation.
So how did you decide that you wanted to pursue an MBA?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. You're a part of that story. It was so years ago, probably 3 years ago, was looking at some of these different executive education programs. Darden has a phenomenal program that I had looked at and actually registered. I'll call it Finance for Dummies. It's one of these immersive finance courses for people like me. And I registered for it. Something came up. I got sick. Something happened. I couldn't make it. So Darden floated me the credits like for 1 year, for 2 years, and it was getting a little ridiculous. And so a woman I work with actually had seen that there was a servant leadership course that was being offered that I would love. So I went to it. And my first day servant leadership course on the grounds there, and I'm in one of the classrooms. You actually have the Darden professors that are teaching it. And I instantly realized three things. One, I'm a lawyer, trained like a lawyer, think like a lawyer. Secondly, the servant leadership stuff is core to who I am. My life has been an independent study in it. I love it. This is great. But what I really want, if I'm going to stay inside a corporation like this, at that point, I'd been on the leadership team for 4 years, is I need to know how companies work. Despite my level, if I was honest with myself, I didn't understand the mechanics of so much of what we were and how we work as a company. So I think that day I actually reached out to you. I mean, the end of my very first day at the executive program, reached out to you. It was, I think, mid-May, like, could I still get in potentially? But it was just, and it was lots of things. It was the desire to have the education, and as importantly, it was Darden. And I have to be honest, and it really was experiencing Darden in the little way that I did, and honestly, more than any other institution I've ever been part of, feeling like it was already home. I mean, it was like, these are my people. This is a church I want to worship in. I mean, it was sort of that instant realization of wanting to be at Darden.
What do you think it was about the Darden experience that just spoke to you so powerfully?
I think there is a clarity about who the school is in terms of its commitment to academic excellence, coupled with a level of integrity and civic leadership, and a notion that you can do good and do well, and that those things are not in tension. And so the amount of focus that is placed on the whole person, and educating and learning on all the things that we need to do to be strong leaders in the business community, to me, it was so clear. And who's drawn to that? Because that's not everybody's thing. And if that is your thing, if being a decent human as well as being a successful business person is your thing, oh my gosh, like, who then comes and works at Darden? Who teaches at Darden? The students that it brings. It becomes a community of diverse, incredibly diverse, but at least like-minded in terms of that being a priority or part of who you are.
All right, so you come to Darden, you're a brand new executive MBA student, and here you are, as noted, you're in quarter 3. What's been the adjustment to being back in school, to be in an MBA program? What would you highlight?
All right, so to be honest, it's like, and for anyone that has kids, for me, it was like the kid experience. And look, some of it was twins, so let me caveat it with that. It is more work than I thought, and it is more rewarding than I could have ever imagined. So I had high hopes. I had very high expectations. It has been so much more rewarding than I could have ever dreamed of, and more work. So a lot of the adjustment was, and look, and someone had said there are schools that you could go to where the hardest thing that you're going to do is get in, right? And so there are schools like that. Darden is not that. The hardest thing at Darden is not getting in. So you work, and you got to be up for the work, and I love it. I mean, I joke about accounting and finance. I love them. Like, I never thought I would have loved them, but it's so the adjustment is just, look, at 53, I'd sort of settled into, a certain life, and to be kind of back in the studies, and, just having to kind of, make the time day in, day out. And everyone says it, just, you don't let stuff slide. I just focus on school, a few hours a day, every day. Fine. Right. But it's trying to find out of kind of an existing life, those few hours. But then, oh my gosh, the world that it opens up you to is just incredible. And that's why I say, I really do believe it is so much more rewarding than I could have ever dreamed of. And I am getting more out of it in ways that I never anticipated.
Are you surprised that you enjoy accounting and finance?
I'm shocked. I mean, these are things I dreaded. And no offense to anyone that doesn't, but I never thought like I was that person, but I am that person. And I think part of it is, the level of instruction is just unbelievable. I mean, I think our instructors get the ratings they do, they earn it. I mean, we have, I think, with the best instructors in the country. And it shows because there's an intuitive piece to both accounting and finance that you teach the intuitive. And then, and you try to make sure you understand that. And then you do the technical on top of it. So it's not just the technical, it's not the mechanics. Sure, there's that. And you have to learn those. But it's as much also about the intuitive and understanding it from a strategic standpoint. I think that's what I really am drawn to. And why I get so much satisfaction out of it.
I appreciate your pointing out the emphasis on intuiting to a particular decision. That's something that I hear, particularly from the faculty in those more quant-driven courses, right? Because people get real hung up on the numbers. But for leaders, for managers, which is really where our executive MBA students are, that intuition, that judgment, that's a key piece.
No, it is critical, and being able to kind of exercise that and learn that. Yeah, because again, the technical stuff, it was sort of like law. I knew more about the law the day that I took the bar than I will ever know the rest of my life, because you learn all the technical, right? But what you're left with the law is a way to think critically. And the same then I think what you're describing is, again, we learn the technical piece, and at the full honesty, I've probably forgotten almost all the technical stuff I learned in Accounting 1 that I now have to relearn to take the Accounting 2 exam this week. But it's that intuitive piece that sort of sticks with you, right? And that I think is what is empowering, and I think is a lot of fun, even for folks that aren't necessarily drawn to it.
So are there other things that have been surprising to you about your experience thus far? It sounds like enjoying accounting and finance, probably not something that you set out down this road expecting to find, but other things that you might highlight.
Sure. I think, honestly, the single biggest surprise for me had been the other students. And I'm going to use the word that everyone talks about, the network. So I think as a lot of folks who probably had, gotten to this decision or listening to this had thought about is the network that you create. And that's the word I'd heard, that, this network that you're going to create. And it's my own issue. I had sort of put network as a bit of a pejorative and something that's a little self-serving. And, I was like, that's fine. That's great. I'm really looking forward to it kind of just being a part of this group. And that the caliber of my classmates, I had not in any way understood how important that is and what that means for the experience. And what I mean is, I said, I knew that a certain person was drawn to this, but oh my gosh, I am in a class with 130 people that are just some of the most exceptional, interesting people I've ever met in my life. And to be in a learning environment with them, spent as part of the learning or leadership on grounds week. Again, it was like a highlight of my life. These are because again, you're instantly with and getting to know just people that I would have never, ever interacted with. And now, talk about fast friends. So that I had completely missed the importance of, and how important it is to my experience in the program is my classmates. And I have to say, again, 100 of the 30 of the most impressive people I've ever met. I joke all the time. You learn about imposter complex and a variety of other things that we have. No, I'm just an imposter. I joke it all the time. Oh my gosh, I got past you. I faked my way in here because these people are unbelievable. Just incredible folks.
It is a great group of people. I think that's one of the real fantastic things about being in an executive MBA program, being in this executive MBA program, is you're pulled together with 135 other people who've all decided, I've got a busy life, I've got a lot going on at work, but I want to take time to grow and to develop as a person, but also professionally. How do you find 135 people in the world all on that sort of same journey together?
Right. Well, in terms of how was that like, or because you did the magic of finding us, so you could, right?
Well, it's hard to find people like that in the world. You might know a person or two, but they have this concentration.
Yeah, and I do think to your point of there is what distinguishes, I think, the executive program potentially for some others is that, again, it's just probably we've been out a little bit longer, we worked a little bit longer, but again, and we folks coming from all over the world, right? Classmate coming in from Indonesia every month. That's right. A classmate coming in from Indonesia every month. Because I do think it is all over the country. It's It's amazing. I mean, it's like, again, it is a highlight for me and one that I had never saw coming. And you realize how important we are to each other in terms of where this journey goes for all of us, and the resource that we've instantly become to each other in making connections and supporting each other with, already different job opportunities. And I mean, it's instant. And so you're instantly with this community that, again, I had not appreciated how active we would be in each other's journey, and what that means for you.
Tell me about your learning team.
Well, in some ways, I think a great microcosm of the class, incredibly diverse. We are, kind of all over the country. I'm not the oldest at 53. And, we have folks that are the other end of this with, having their first baby, right? So Jack, one of the folks on our team, he and his wife are expecting their first down in Florida. Former military, current military, other folks at big companies. I mean, all within a 6-person team. And I think it's weird because we call each other fam. So we call each other like the family. Well, we always text or email each other like, hey, fam. So we call each other family. And that's what it really feels like, because it's not friendship. I mean, it's weird because it's not like my law school classmates. We really do treat each other like family and celebrate each other's personal milestones. Rob has 2 young ones. The first 2 crawled for the first time, and we're all studying together and, take them home to celebrate, the first crawl. And so it does become, and we act like a family. And that's why it's a bit of a microcosm of the broader group, because that's just the 6 of us. But the whole 130, 135 feels like that. I mean, it really, you don't lose that on scale. There's that intimacy and that, level of personal care, even on scale.
So when you look at where you were when you started the program to where you are now, what do you see as the impact of the program thus far? I know it's still early days.
Yeah, but I've heard this before. I've now lived it. It's what I've loved is the amount that I'm able to instantly apply in my day job. So I had thought, again, like you go through the course and years later, you'll apply these things. I find that I am every week being able to take learnings from the program and instantly apply it into my day job. And I'm not the only one. We talk about it all the time, how often that happens. And, and again, I'm the guy that leads diversity, equity, inclusion. So I'm not in finance. I'm not in accounting. So a lot of my applications tend to be around leadership and strategy. But even the ability to kind of take some of those concepts from accounting and finance and the quantitative classes and begin to understand my organization and business differently and my role in it. So in terms of where I am now, I thought it's like, after 2 years, you're finally in a position to, begin to apply and leverage. And no, I mean, it's sort of like from day one, you find yourself very differently positioned against no matter where you are and what you're doing, and able to kind of practice and apply constantly as you go, which feels fantastic, right? I mean, it's not like, oh, you wait, you graduate, you apply. Nope. You finish your first session and wow, all right. Yeah, that's certainly a way that I had not thought about doing this. And you take it back no matter what you do in your organization and try it out.
What's it been like to learn in business school through the case method? Of course, law school famously has a case method. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this.
Yeah. So it's funny because you're absolutely right. I mean, I will never forget, first day in, it was an environmental law class, my first law class. You read the case, you come in, someone, who's going to brief the case? Someone raises their hand. And the classmate starts going, she doesn't get 5 words in, and the professor cuts her off and is like, well, why is that important? And then she has to explain, and she tries to finish the sentence, and he cuts her off, why is that important? And, it was the most painful, 20, 30 minutes to get through, because she never got through, 8 facts without her kind of pulling it apart, because in law, so much of what you're forced to do is think critically and incredibly precisely about, because a comma matters and a word matters. And so it teaches you a level of precision and thinking critically around different concepts. So in all candor, I showed up thinking like maybe it was going to be something like that. Prepping for a case that way versus prepping for the cases that we do is a very different thing. And so it did take me the first couple of quarters to finally, I think, appreciate what business school case method is versus law school, which is fundamentally different. You will get through, your first 5 words. It's not the level of precision. It is the concepts. You have to know the facts. You have to be able to apply the facts, all of those. But I think now that I've finally gotten it and understand that I was definitely over preparing and preparing the wrong way for case method. I love it because what it does is it forces us to get into the concepts and apply them ourselves, as opposed to just to be kind of told here's the framework. We build the framework, right? And so you're constantly as a group and then as individuals through the case, kind of solving it together. And in a way that is so much more supportive than what I was used to in law school, and fun and inviting and exciting. It doesn't mean we don't disagree and argue. We absolutely do, but it tends to be amongst us, and the teacher, the instructors just facilitates it, right? Where in law school, it's definitely, a different dynamic. So it is now that I'm finally there, and I have to own that it took me a couple of quarters to get there. I'm loving it because I was struggling to kind of get the right level of prep and how to think about it and what's expected. But yeah, I'm there.
That's all part of the journey for Darden students, whether they went to law school or not. It's just to figure out what class preparation or what it looks like to be actually prepared for class. So what does your class prep look like now? Tell us your process.
Yeah. So for me, I do like to start a little further out, and I like OneNote is my biggest friend, and I tend to do, you may have a textbook reading or articles ahead of time. I try to do the foundational readings first, get the concepts, understand them, spend some time with them, and then go to the case. And then you kind of read the case. Again, it will capture or begin to bring to life some of the issues that you've identified. And, highlight, take notes on the side, think about it. And you'll usually then right before class, read the case again as a way just to kind of refresh myself on what it is. You usually have a couple questions that you're asked to kind of think through and answer. And again, it's like, these are a few sentences, not like a page answer. So you kind of think through it. So what would I say? Why would I say that? And that's it. So I'd say I'm a slower reader. I've done that. So I tend to, take for a regular class, it's usually a couple hours of prep, for me, being a little bit on the slower side. I know there are classmates that do it much, much faster. And the other piece that you have is, particularly when you get on grounds, is your learning team and being able to leverage your learning team. And what that means is when you have 12 classes that you're coming into, you can't do what I just described for every one of them and retain it. So you just divide, conquer. I would spend more time on the one case or two cases that I have accountability for, do better notes so that everyone can have them, do the analysis. And then we hop on a call and just walk each other through what we did and answer questions. So I do think a solid learning team becomes critical, particularly for the on-grounds part of it.
Well, what are you looking forward to in the months ahead, Michael?
Well, so most immediately is going to Spain next week as part of the first global residency. So I'm looking forward to that, for 8 different reasons. But it's going to be a blast. We've got 15 of us that are, again, these are the first global residencies for our class. A group is going to Morocco, a group going to Spain. So looking forward to that. The program, the being with the other 14 folks. It's a whole new chapter in kind of the Darden journey that, super excited about. So to get there, I'm looking forward to being done with third quarter exams, all of which are still in front of me. And then I think, this is what is, again, almost impossible to get my mind around, is that we come back, dive into quarter 4, and we're really starting to crank through kind of the core classes, and all of a sudden, on the horizon become electives. And what I struggle with is, as opposed to honing in and feeling like there are fewer things that I'm going to be taking in the months ahead, I feel like there's more and more. Every time I meet an instructor, I'm like, oh my God, I have to take an elective with them every time. And so I am struggling with the freedom that's about to, come our way as we get through core and are able to go ahead and begin to get into the electives. But yeah, and I think the thing that folks had advised and is starting to happen is by this moment right now, third quarter in, you're kind of, past January into February, you really do get your, you get your sea legs under you, where you begin to know how much you need to prepare, what's expected when you're in class, what are exams going to be like, so you really begin to know, because you've had enough time to kind of get through it, how to do this and how to do it well. And so that confidence, having kind of this anxiety that I'm going to fail out of business school behind me. And like, we all have it. I have it. I mean, every exam I've taken, I've thought to myself, I could have just failed that. I've done fine. I haven't. But I think all of us have this sense that, I'm like one bad exam away from this thing unraveling. I think you get to this point and you realize you've got this, right? You belong here. You know what you're doing. And I think the ability to enjoy it even more without that anxiety that somehow it's going to unravel at any moment, kind of becomes a thing of the past.
How did you pick Spain for a global residency?
Well, so Lottie, who oversees the program, she's such a good job. She's again incredible at what she does, and the part of it is that I'm in the executive program. If you want to do a global residency, it means that you would do 3 more of these things. So you would do 4 of them total. And so part of doing Spain was to try this out. And if I love it so much and decide that I have to do a global residency, I'd be positioned then to go ahead and pick up another global residency at each of the other times. So it was that. And then coupled with the fact that, longer term, aspirationally, I'd potentially love to be on the operation side, potentially with an international business, and where that would potentially be more likely than anywhere else is Europe. So it's just getting experience in kind of Europe and better understanding the market, for that.
I appreciate your point around sort of the savvy scheduling, traveling in the first global travel period for an EMBA format student who at least is curious about possibly exploring becoming a GEMBA student. For our listeners, of course, you're admitted, you choose your format at the time of accepting your offer. There is opportunity as we move towards the start of school to change your mind. That always happens. We have some people move from EMBA to GEMBA and vice versa. And then, post-matriculation, once you start school, there is also an opportunity for EMBA students to travel 4 times on these 4 global residencies, become a GEMBA student. For a GEMBA student who finds that they can't travel 4 times, to shift to EMBA. That happens, absolutely. But if you're the EMBA student who is thinking about GEMBA, you have to travel in the first travel period, like Michael is talking about here. So there's 2 trips going right now, right? Spain and Morocco is the other trip.
Okay. Yeah, and I think, and I love, we have 15, I think there may be as many as 40 or 45 to Morocco, so much bigger group. And again, I think the program's just that way, right? Lots of great international destinations to choose from. But having heard from, again, the 23s and others that have done these, it just, like, there are too many highlights. The problem with this program is there's too many highlights to count. It is another highlight that, again, people just really take a lot out of.
Well, Michael, any final thoughts? Any advice for our listeners?
Look, I think, look, if they're still listening, it shows that there's a level of interest in Darden that I think shows that there's something there, right? That there's something about everything that they've read or heard so far that has piqued their interest, that they want to know more. And I think, I had the benefit of the mini immersion because of that executive ed program that I did. My advice would be to get to Charlottesville. I think that, these programs, on the website, on paper, can look a certain way. And I think to experience and to walk into those buildings and to meet you in person, to see the team, the folks that we hosted this weekend when they came to our on grounds and were able to sit in classes, I can't more highly recommend getting in person and seeing for yourself. Right. People have friends that went through the program. People have friends that went through different programs, and everyone's got their point of view. I just think people experiencing it themselves. And I think the best way to do it is to be in person with those that comprise this program. In some ways, is the surest way to help make that decision. And again, and it may not be for everyone, which is great, but for those, this is the right fit. I think you sort of know right away in the same way that I did. So that would be my encouraging. Is just if you're still listening, is to sort of take the time, come sit in our class, get to Charlottesville, see the program for yourself. I think goes a long way.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, for sharing your story, for answering all of my questions, and good luck on your exams, Q3 exams, and safe travels to Spain. I'm so envious of, when these travel periods roll around. I mean, we've got executive MBA students going to Spain, Morocco. There's also a second year group going to Vietnam, which is I think the first time for that one for our executive MBA program. Morocco is also a fairly new location. Spain as well. I mean, to your point, there's so many great places to go. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Brett, thank you. It's great talking with you.
And that was my interview with Michael Thorne-Begland, a first-year student in our executive MBA class of 2024. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. You can reach at exec, that's EXEC, MBA at darden.virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.